In today's episode, I will be giving my review and reaction to the 1990 film The Hunt for Red October. The Hunt for Red October is a submarine spy thriller with a runtime of 2 hours and 15 minutes. The director is John McTiernan. I've seen a little bit of his work before. I've seen Die Hard and Predator, two pretty strong action movies, so I'm excited seeing that he was the director of this movie coming into this one. This movie stars Sean Connery, Alec Baldwin, Scott Glenn, James Earl Jones, and Sam Neill. So let's dive under the water in a submarine right into The Hunt for Red October. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the dub cast. This movie is an interesting watch. Coming into it, I don't have a lot of knowledge on submarines, so I think it was a little bit interesting to learn more about submarines in general. I just have to say, I have absolutely zero desire to ever be on a submarine after the Titanic incident of 2023. Nonetheless, I had a terrible experience scuba diving, being underwater. The idea of being that far underwater is terrifying to me. I don't think I need to explain, but if I do, just think of you're that many feet underwater. I read a book, one of the Jack Ryan books, which is funny because Jack Ryan's in this movie, but well, it's not funny because of what the actual scene is. They put this woman in a barrel, and she just sinks to the bottom of the ocean. No chance to get out of the barrel. Like that fucking sucks, man. I love the ocean. I do. Swimming in the ocean is one of my top 10 feelings in the way. I mean, no, that's probably not. I mean, I'd have to think about it. But swimming in the ocean is healing. It's nice. I love the waves. I love body surfing. But you'll never catch me in a fucking submarine, dude. I just can't imagine. Like one little thing goes wrong. There's a leak. Like I know there's probably emergency protocols and everything, but I have no interest in a submarine, bro. I mean, people out there listening to this, who if you're watching this review, there's more than likely a good chance you're interested in submarines and want to go on one. I have no interest. They found the Titanic. That's it. We don't need to do a tour of it. We can get a virtual tour. Especially we haven't discovered a lot of the ocean down there. The anglerfish with the lights. I know they're not as creepy as advertised. I think I saw that on Twitter a couple years ago, but nonetheless, keep me out of the bottom of the ocean. I'm good with my, you know, 5 foot waves off the east coast of the United States of America. Actually, Mediterranean Sea is pretty nice. I think that's those only ones I've actually swum in. Heard good things about the Pacific waves. Nonetheless, back to The Hunt for Red October. I will not be in a submarine anytime soon. Short story. Thought this movie was decently captivating throughout. They call it a thriller, but I don't think it's really the most edgy or seat movie. But I think it's more of that subtle, pressure that is being applied to the movie and the characters in it, and you're kind of have that pressure going on in the back of your head throughout the movie. I thought the idea of Romeus being a Roman, or not Roman, KGB/Russian defector was, and having to hide it also from his crew, and then also evacuate them safely, but get the submarine to the U.S. I thought that was a really interesting concept. Basically, what this whole movie is built upon, and definitely that's what kept me into it all along, was this kind of interesting concept of he's a defector, but he's trying to keep his crew safe at the same time. But he also, murders somebody in cold blood, but he also is just trying to help the U.S. He defects out of the KGB. Loved Romeus' character throughout. I liked this character. I thought he was a boss. Him just killing the political officer in the first 15 minutes or so, I think that's a shocking moment. Like, you're not expecting that. But it gives you an idea of kind of how serious the stakes are in this movie and how much he's willing to get this done in order to accomplish his mission and fulfill his objectives and what he thinks is right in his mind. I will say I thought Jack Ryan was very sort of cliche in this movie. You have an idea of this guy who is an agent and he has one conversation with somebody, and that's going to influence the whole movie because he's very well connected, and he doesn't do field work, but when he does field work, he's able to stop the cook and kill the cook at the end and circumnavigate the whole ordeal with this movie. But he just writes books, though. He's just, random agent. I thought that was like pretty cliche, and I wasn't a big fan of Alec Baldwin's performance in this movie. I thought it was pretty just standard and didn't. They tried to make him interesting, but he wasn't really that interesting to me. I thought the score of this movie was pretty decent. Think that that movie music will stick in my mind for the next couple of days. I do wish there were a little more submarine scenes somehow. I know it's kind of hard to film submarine scenes when it's like a back and forth battle or whatever, but I thought we could have done more with the like exterior of the submarines passing each other. I know they kind of tried to show that, but there wasn't like action, so I guess it's kind of hard to accomplish that. Overall, I thought this was a decent movie. I would recommend this to people who liked Cold War stuff in relation to that, or if you're a fan of submarines, you have to have checked this one out already. I'm rolling with a 7.6 on this movie. Thought it was, standout performance by Sean Connery. Alec Baldwin, who they kind of forced into as the main character, I didn't really appreciate his performance that much and thought he was mostly cliche. I did appreciate some of the cool stuff going on with the concepts of the movie, the themes, and, I did like the subtle submarine shots we did get. Wish we could see more of that and less of Jack Ryan like futzing about, but it is what it is. Thought it was a decent movie. I'd recommend this to somebody if they're like, hey, you got a good movie that's, Cold War type thing. I'd be like, go check out The Hunt for Red October. Or if for some reason, I don't think I know anyone who actually gives a shit about submarines, but if there are, I'm sure there's geeks for everything. So I'm sure there's geeks for submarines out there. Go check out The Hunt for Red October. You know what I mean? It's one of those types that's kind of specific, but if you do check it out, it's just a nice movie to watch once and be like, oh yeah, I remember that movie when Sean Connery was a beast and it was kind of Cold War, good vibes, interesting concept. So that's where I'm landing on The Hunt for Red October. Let's compare this score amongst the other scores we've reviewed, or the other scores of the movies we've reviewed so far on the Dubcast. So this is movie review number 57, and this clocks in at number 37 of 57 movies reviewed up until this point, tying with The Little Things, Backdraft, Molly's Game. I would take this movie over Molly's Game, but I've got the other two slightly over it. I think The Little Things has more interesting concepts, and Backdraft, I thought, the whole cinematography of that movie was a little bit better. You're on land with fire rather than underwater, relegated to kind of limited submarine shots. This is the lowest ranking Scott Glenn movie on the list so far, falling behind Training Day, which I do not remember him being in Training Day, but he was, 9.1, and Backdraft, the aforementioned Backdraft, 7.6, so two Scott Glenn 7.6 is right there. And the only other movie I could kind of drum up a comparison for was Snowpiercer, because they're mostly vehicle movies. So we have Snowpiercer at an 8.4, which is like a mostly train movie. The Hunt for Red October, 7.6, a submarine movie. So that's where we land on the Dubcast graphic. Now let's dive into my thoughts and reactions throughout the movie. So they start this one out with a sentence. Now let me know if you guys understand the sentence, because I was going over my notes before this review and it doesn't make much sense to me, but I'm trying to figure it out. Nothing about what we're about to see never happened, according to the governments. So the governments just openly admit that things happen, because nothing about what we're going to see never happened. So that's insinuating that. See, this is a good way to start it out, because your mind's already fucked and you have no idea what's going on. Nothing about what we're about to see. So let's break this sentence down. Nothing about what we're about to see. So we see everything, but nothing about it never happened. So it does. Am I misreading that? Everything happened. So the governments can confirm everything in this movie happened. So I need to actually. I always say I'm going to do research after and then never do it, so I probably won't do it. But I need to do research into if this movie is based off a true story or not. Hopefully it's not, so I can shit on the plot details. That's literally that's half the battle here. If it's based off a true story, I can't say shit, because I mean if it's loosely based, we got places to run. But after we figured out that sentence, basically the governments of the U.S. and the KGB admit that this happened, which is surprising during the Cold War that the KGB would admit that they just lost a submarine, and the U.S. would, secretly acquire a submarine and want people to know about it. So I would be surprised if the sentence was true, if they were actually going for what it meant and not just trying to give you a mind twister to start the movie out. Nonetheless, spending way too much time on this. We start out with our main guy, Alec Baldwin, back-to-back Baldwin reviews on the channel. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really care about the Baldwins. Alec Baldwin, Ghost Gun or whatever he did. He shot somebody. It's kind of fucked up. I mean, it's not going to stop me from watching their movies, though. He's on a flight, and this is an invasion of privacy right off the bat. I was a little bit triggered by this. Now, I've been told in the past, some of my movie reviews, I just don't understand the 80s, I don't understand the 90s, and maybe that's true. I'm born in 2000s, I'm a screenager. I've had most things, I've had a pretty good life. I haven't had to, go through a lot of struggles. So maybe I'm speaking from a place of privilege. Even I'm going off a rampage that has nothing to do with what I'm about to say, but I'm getting that out there now. The flight attendant on this plane tells Jack to get some sleep. Lady, or man, I think it was a lady. Lady, I'm going to do what I fucking want on a plane. You're not going to tell me to get sleep. You're not going to tell me to put my head down, and you're not going to tell me to sit back and relax. Lady, it's my plane. I paid for the ticket. I'm going to watch 6 episodes of Andor if I want to, which is what I just did on my most recent plane. I'm going to take a melatonin and not fall asleep, and then I'm trying to remember what I did on my flight to Spain. Mostly just watch movies. I mean, if I'm on a plane, bro, I have at least 10 hours of content downloaded. Granted, this is 1990, so they didn't even have the capabilities to do this yet, but ain't nobody telling me what to do on my plane. I mean, I've watched some of the movies I reviewed on this channel. I watched An American Gangster. I watched Denzel Washington's character shoot a guy straight in the face. I've watched, I was watching fucking BDSM scenes with Joe Goldberg and Bronte on a train. Like, you're not telling me what to do on a plane. It's my ticket. Unless I'm like the Burger King hat guy that needs to be thrown out, which obviously I would never do that. But I'm just saying examples of people. Tiffany Gomas on the plane. That motherfucker's, unless I'm like that level of virality, the naked woman in the airport. Unless I'm doing that, leave me alone. So I didn't like this right off the bat, the flight attendant. And now this whole, everything I just said could be totally negated by somebody being like, I was in the 90s and flight attendants talked to us all the time. You new kids just don't want to talk to anybody. Fair enough. Whatever you want to say. Don't care. Yeah, so mind your business, flight attendant. That's basically the end of the rant there. So we're back. Well, we're just starting on the Russian sub now, the Red October. We have a political officer assigned to the submarine. He's in a cabin reading up on all of Romeus' stuff. Gives a nice little shout out to Oppenheimer, who is now a very integral part of my history knowledge due to just watching Oppenheimer in theaters twice. And this political officer is smoking in the submarine and also in the dude's cabin. Now, I know you're not supposed to smoke on planes. I know you're not supposed to smoke on trains. You're not supposed to smoke anywhere now. It's 2025, right? But in the 90s, I guess we're just smoking cigarettes on submarines. Is that, I mean, I guess the problem there is the secondhand smoke, right? So I guess it's okay. I mean, maybe that one's a little bit more reasonable than the flight attendant. Anyways, so Romeus has a secret little mission going on. We don't really know much about him yet, but right off the bat, we're thrown right into it when he kills the guy. I said, bro, tough, but fuck it. I didn't like that political officer anyway. He was kind of being a scumbag. He burns the orders that the political officer has, and he has new ones in his jacket, so we know this guy's a man with a plan. Of course. Why wouldn't Sean Connery be a man with a fucking plan? So one of the regulations on these submarines is that there are 2 keys for the missiles of the submarine in case somebody goes rogue, especially I'm assuming in the KGB, correct me if I'm wrong, they wanted to be extra secure because sometimes you have a lot of defectors. Seems like a lot of people in both sides of the Cold War really were defecting, spies. You couldn't really trust anybody in those days in the 90s, late 80s, so makes sense. But now Romeus has broken the system because he's killed the person who has the other key, and he has both keys. So his second in command's like, I don't think you should really have both keys. That's kind of against the rules, but goes right against their ideology. He's got both keys. Maybe something to keep an eye out for later on. I don't think it really is, but just shows the power Romeus has on this ship now. A lot of people second guessing his judgment based off of that. So the Red October is actually cited by another American sub. I don't have the name of it, but it's that sub with the gentleman who is, kind of a rookie and then finds the sub through listening to stuff. And this is one of the cool shots we get of the submarines. It looks like they're literally like feet apart. Even with the Red October having the Russian army sing, I think that was a ploy by Romeus to get them to try and track down the Red October, to help the Americans track it down, but it's not going to help at this point in time. But this was a cool scene. The Red October is passing just right by the American sub, slips right by it. So I thought that was a interesting submarine scene when I was asking for more stuff like that throughout the movie. The Soviet Union has found out back in their place about Ramius's letter. He wrote a letter to them basically being like, fuck you, I'm defecting and you guys are terrible. They find out about his letter and then they put out their orders to sink the Red October. Ramius has gone rogue. There's also kind of another Russian submarine that's semi-relevant throughout the movie. It's kind of just the people on the KGB side chasing after the Red October. So keep that in the back of your mind. I think I'll have the name of that later on, the name of that ship. So we go back to Jack Ryan after all these awesome Russian submarine scenes, and we learn a little bit about Jack's history. So he was in a helicopter crash where the pilot and crew died, and he had to spend a year learning to walk again. Now, remember this fact later on. I'm not going to crap on him too much here. If that story is true wait, this story can't be true because there's so many. If there was actually a man named Jack Ryan, like running around the 80s and 90s, he's the greatest agent of all time. But I think these are all based off Tom Clancy novels and all that. I've watched John Krasinski be Jack Ryan for a couple episodes. Like I've read books about Jack Ryan. Who is Jack Ryan? Is he just a made-up character? I think so. So I'm rolling with this movie not being real for now. Anyways, remember this fact that Jack was in a helicopter crash where the pilot and crew died, and he had to spend over a year learning to walk again. I think that's going to be very relevant later on. So back to the cool part of the movie, Ramius and the gang. They barely escape a torpedo, and they learn that there is a saboteur on board. Just like I mentioned before with the Cold War stuff, there's somebody who's definitely got a KGB or Russian affinity on the board still because they have a ton of crew members. They don't know who the saboteur is, though. Ramius is kind of doing his own thing, and no one really knows his true objectives or ideas yet. But there is a saboteur on board who's giving up their location and knows that they're an enemy of the state at this time because they gave up the Loke. So that's one of the main parts of the third act of the movie, is trying to find who the saboteur is and how to stop them. So the second in command to Ramius, they're making plans for living in America after they kind of agree that we're going to give up this sub to the Americans and we'll just live with whatever. Hopefully we'll get to live in America though. And he mentions living in Montana of all places. What's up with I'm trying to think in oh god, why can't I remember the name of that movie? Inglourious Basterds. The guy I think he wants to live in like Nantucket. I guess that's like a reasonable. If you have a chance to live in all 50 states and pick one of your choosing, why would you choose Montana? I guess you could be like a skier. It's probably the most similar to Russia, like the landscape, the weather. But I don't understand it. I don't want to get myself in trouble, but I'm not going to say it. Dude, it's so bad. I've actually said that to people. I think I've said that to my mom like 4 times in the past week that I'm going to say something and then I just don't say it. And I hate when people do that. So I'll say it. I've had 2 friends move out to Montana. Now, originally I was questioning their ideas, but they love it. They love skiing. They love the winter weather. Honestly, Montana looks nice in the summer, to be honest, looking at like the pictures and hearing the stories and everything. So hand up, I'm wrong about that. But still, I don't think I'd pick Montana in my top 25 states to live in. Maybe a different podcast for a different day, ranking every state of how much I'd be willing to live in it. But I don't think Montana would be in my top 30. No, it would probably be top 30. I mean, you got like South Dakota. I'm moving to South Dakota. Yeah. I won't spend too much time on this. His other option is Arizona in the winter, which I think is reasonable because it'll at least be nice out. You have the Grand Canyon, but isn't the whole point of Montana to be there in the winter and for skiing and stuff? Maybe if he's trying to stay off the grid, low key, Montana, go for it. I don't know. I was kind of confused by this sentiment. Moving on, back to Jack's part of the story. He is part of this operation. Turns out he talked to Romeus one time at a dinner like 5 years ago, so they're just basing their whole operation based off that conversation, which is mad respectable that they trust him that much, but also plot, a lot of people don't like this part of the plot in the TV time comments. They're dropping him off at the other American sub that passed right by earlier on, and it goes awry. It seemed like a shitty plan overall. They were going to like drop him out of the sky, and then they were going to pick him up in the water. And then eventually they're just like, fuck it, they just drop him in the water, and then they take him on. So Jack Ryan is now on the submarine in order to communicate with Romeus, and they're going to figure it out from there. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I felt like they were kind of throwing Jack Ryan at you and saying, you're going to like him because he's a main part of the story, even though we didn't really need him to be. So the Soviet message sends out a message to the United States to destroy the Red October if they see it, because it's going to fire missiles on the United States if they do not. Or no, that the Red October is going to fire missiles on the United States. It's gone rogue. They're going to fire missiles, so please destroy that submarine. Now, in a time of heated war, Cold War, the U.S. is like bullshit. Well, there is the back and forth battle. It is a movie. There needs to be opposing sides, whatever. So we're back on the Red October, and we see the sabotager has caused a radiation leak aboard the ship. And initially I'm like, is this part of Romeus's plan? Was there supposed to be a radiation leak? Is he working with the sabotager? But saboteur, I don't think so. I think this guy just went rogue on board. A U.S. warship appears and sees the Red October and says they'll fire upon them if they submerge. With the radiation leak, they have to go to the top of the ocean. So the warship's going to, if they submerge again. So this puts Romeus in even more of a pickle, but also kind of helps his case because he's trying to escape his crew and also, give the sub away. So they're actually able to pull up to the submarine. The other American submarine is actually able to pull up to the Red October and board it after James Earl Jones' character detonates a missile underwater, pretends like the Red October was blown up, and makes the people say they heard it hit the hull. So he kind of signs off on that. He tells the people aboard his submarine to tell the warship that it hit the hull. Now, when this other American submarine boards the Red October, we have Jack Ryan, who specifically throughout this entire movie doesn't smoke a single cigarette, but right as he gets on board this Red October, he smokes a cigarette and gets clowned immediately by all the Russians. They're like, why would you smoke on a submarine? Which I was saying at the beginning. They're like, this guy fucking smokes in a cigarette. Also, the political officer was smoking on the submarine too, so, I mean, kind of hypocritical of the Russians there, but Jack Ryan gets clowned. Thought that was funny because Jack Ryan was mostly a clown character, in my opinion. Now, we also remember that little Russian other sub I told you about in the beginning of this review. It's here again. It's the final boss, the adversary to Romeus, his character. He fires, I believe this is actually one of the Skarsgård families, so Baldwin versus Skarsgård. No, I don't know. But they fire a missile at the Red October, and who's put in charge of the submarine? It's Jack Ryan, with zero experience, being told what to do by Romeus. Of course, he's able to nail it because he just writes books, guys. But, of course, he's able to drive this thing. And they avoid the torpedo. Then gunfire breaks out on the Red October. The saboteur is here with a gun. Vasily, the second in command, is shot. R.I.P. No Montana for you, brother. Seems like those people who always wish to. I think that was just kind of a emotional play of him being like, I want to live in Montana and be happy, and then he just dies because emotion and sad. So we have the day. We have the Dallas ship, which is the U.S. ship. Told you I had that name for you later on. I think I actually said the Russian one, but it's the U.S. one I have. Sorry. The Dallas is able to save the day by diverting another torpedo that is sent at the Red October. And so that's saved from the missiles for now. Jack is able to track down the saboteur. It's the cook. The whole time it was the cook because we got so many clues that it was the cook, and we know who the cook is. I mean, the saboteur doesn't really matter. There's a lot of other stuff going on. But Jack tracks him down and shoots him after just writing books. It's a stupid trope throughout the movie. But good for him. The saboteur is dead. They avoid being blasted by another torpedo. So that torpedo that they just missed comes back and blows up the other Russian ship that was shooting at them. So it's a win-win-win, because they're safe. They got the saboteur, and the other Russian ship, their adversaries, is blown up, and everything is resolved, man, because we're good now, and Jack Ryan's back at the airport, just another day's work, and buys the bigger bear for his daughter, the bigger teddy bear. After choosing between a smaller or bigger one, he chooses the bigger one and brings it back home to her, because that's the through line of this movie. So take out the Jack Ryan stuff. I thought this movie was pretty good, but the Jack Ryan brings it down a decent bit for me. Just thought he was pretty cliche, tropey, whatever you want to say. So what were your guys' thoughts on Red October? Do you agree? Do you disagree with what I had to say about it? Let me know down below in the comments. What would you rate the Hunt for Red October? Shout out to the person that recommended this movie to me a while ago. I told you I always watch recommendations, so give me some good recommendations, guys. Just kidding, don't. I have 100 movies on my list I need to watch, but y'all know the deal. Coming up on the Dubcast, we got more movie reviews. My Cousin Vinny coming up next. You, Season 5 review and recap and reaction. Did NBA stream. By the time this video is coming out, that'll be last week. Round 1, Round 2, breaking it down. UFC 315 happened. See if my picks are right. Probably useless to watch that video, but have fun to see me and Shane working together. My guest, I go back and watch the guest ones because I love the ones with my guests. I can't listen to my fucking self talking for hours, But I appreciate all you guys out there who do. You're my true #1 subscribers. You're the reason I wake up every day and fucking make the Dubcast. So let's go. Subscribe to the Dubcast Army down below. Click the bell for notifications. You know the deal. So content will be flowing throughout and/or wraps up on this Tuesday, or did wrap up. I don't know when I'm posting this reaction. Nonetheless, just know every week you're getting at least 2 to 3 podcasts, and that's on everything. Survivor wrapping up soon. There's so many choices. You can literally be here for whatever you want. So I'll leave y'all with that, and as always, be easy, y'all.